Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
What's up, North Texas? Welcome to another episode of Bitches Love Sports. Anyway, I think y'all can hear me, so we'll get that straightened out. But yeah, how's it going, bros and besties? Cowboys fans, it's been an interesting bye week, a very interesting bye week. But I hope everybody is doing well. Looking forward to the next contest against the Raiders. That's going to be on Monday night, right? Yeah, Monday night game in Las Vegas against the Las Vegas Raiders. So hopefully everybody's looking forward to that. Dallas Wings fans, got a new coach in the building. Everybody thought it was going to be Sandy Brandello, but she ended up passing on that, going to Toronto. Oh, did I get cut off, Kelvin? Well, let me know if you can hear me now. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. But Dallas Mavs fans, y'all have the story of the day. The story of the day, the sports drama that is taking over the headlines today is the firing of Nico Harris, which we are definitely going to get to in a minute. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to that. We need to talk about the whole timeline, what led to his firing, not just the trading of Luka. Not just that. There's been things that have happened since then. But for anybody who's been reading the chat, as Kelvin said, yes, he should have been fired a long time ago. We're going to get into that. But before we get into all the sports drama of today, I do want to take a moment and say Happy Veterans Day, and show some real love to everybody who served. For the veterans who are listening and for anyone who has a veteran in your family, the sacrifices that veterans make it possible for us to do things like this, as simple as talk our talk, argue about sports, chase dreams in this country, build platforms like this. And so Bitches Love Sports literally could not exist without the sacrifice of the veterans in this country. It would mean nothing. It would be nothing. So for the freedom that y'all protect, I just want to say thank you and that we don't take that lightly. But But yeah, I hope everybody has had a happy Veterans Day too. This is like one of the years, like normally I'm in a place where it's like when you're in an office, they might have decorations or have like a special meeting or presentation or acknowledge the veterans in the company, or they might even have like barbecue or something. Like, when you're doing the entrepreneurial stuff, the independent contractor stuff, you miss a lot of holidays. There's a lot of stuff that you wake up and you're like, what? It's what day? So I hope everybody else had a good Veterans Day and that it's been a good day at work, or, if people still barbecue for Veterans Day and things of that nature. But yeah, the sports drama of the day, Nico Harris being fired. It took me a while to even realize this happened. It took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that happened. I was working this morning. Anybody who's heard me talk about my personal life, sometimes I'm working as early as like 3, 4, 5 in the morning sometimes. And so I take my morning break. The first thing I do is I hop on social media. I see my homeboy K. Lou has posted about something. Something has happened. And he's like, this should have happened 9 months ago and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, what happened? And then as I scroll along, I start seeing some of the graphics and some of the headlines. And I'm like, whoa, they actually did it. And no, it wasn't because of the Mavs lost to the Celtics last night. Or no, not the Celtics, the Bucks. My bad. They're both green. They're both green. Don't judge me. It's been a long day. But it wasn't because of that loss. I actually think what did it was two things. I think it was two things. One, it was the fact that the fans who were at the Mavs games were literally becoming unbearable. It's like, you got Mavericks players trying to shoot free throws. A time normally when if you're the home team, you can count on your fans to be quiet so that you can focus and get these points. But the Fire Nico chants were so loud, even though that was a relatively close game. The Fire Nico chants were so loud that it was just like, wow, like they can't even let this man concentrate on his free throws. Like they were not even doing their job as Mavs fans who were in the arena watching the team. And then one of the players even said recently in an interview that they didn't believe the fans wanted them to win. Like if you watch the footage of the Mavs games, or if you were in a place to actually go, you see so many Luka jerseys, and not just like old Mavs Luka jerseys. You see Luka jerseys from like Lakers Luka jerseys. And the Fire Nico chants were like almost constant. And so when that player said, I don't even think these fans want us to win, some people were saying it was because of how disruptive they were being. And some people were like, nah, they really want this man gone so bad. They would rather us lose to have a reason to fire this man than to see us win right now. And winning now is actually one of the things that Nico Harris said that he was going to do. And so, it's like you kind of see what happened today. It's like, okay, so Mavs, are we still employing the win now strategy or not? Like, did that leave with Nico Harris? And I would have to bet it's probably gone with him. And there's a couple of reasons for that. But first, I just want to get into a timeline of everything that happened, just so that we can make sure that we're all on the same page about everything that's kind of gone down. So Nico Harris has been with the Dallas Mavericks for 4 seasons. And for the most part, people knew his name. But, it was just the team, they had their successes, but they got close to where they wanted to go, but not quite where they wanted to go. And by they got close, I mean, they made some deep playoff runs. They fell short. And so around the time that this trade with Luka Doncic happened, they were thinking about like, okay, what can we do to where we can actually become champions next time? We came this close. And for some reason, the solution that Nico Harris came up with was to trade one of their best players. And if you kind of think about what the headlines were saying at the time, you kind of think about like, okay, there can be an argument made for why you might want to get rid of Luka Doncic. But what the argument couldn't be, like for me, I, like everybody, was surprised to find out in the middle of the night that Luka was leaving Dallas, that they were getting rid of him. I'm like, what? Like, so what is the plan? But I think the thing that pissed me off even more was that they decided to replace him with Anthony Davis. Which, don't get me wrong, when Anthony Davis is healthy, he's a fucking beast. But emphasis on when he's healthy, that was a thing. I'm just like, whatever you think about Luka's fitness, about, his commitment to the team, because, people were saying that his attitude wasn't good. People were saying that, he just didn't have a good connection, and that he wasn't really a leader, and that he wasn't really in shape, and yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But whatever you think about all of that, you trade him for the dude with the nickname Street Clothes. This man is unhealthy so much they call him Street Clothes, and that's who you think you should replace Luka with? Really? And so when that happened on May 30th of 2024. Oh, wait, no. May 30th of 2024 is when the Mavericks went to the NBA Finals. February 2nd of 2025 is actually when Luka got traded. My bad. I've got my notes in front of me, but I'm barely looking at them. Y'all bear with me. Like I said, it's been a long day. So, it really hadn't even been that long since they had made it to the finals that they decided to make this decision, which I get it. You're looking for solutions. One of the things Nico Harrison said at the time was like, what did he say? It was something about bold decisions, but I feel like there's a line between bold decisions and stupid decisions. So anyway, let me back up on the timeline. It was May 30th, 2024 that the Mavericks went to the finals. And they were trying to look for solutions ever since then because they felt like they were so close and they fell short. Now, in between them going to the finals and them trading Luka Doncic, and this is going to be relevant later, July 2nd is when they signed Klay Thompson. And I have to bring him up because as mad as Mavs fans have been, I feel like Klay Thompson has more reason than anybody to be pissed off about how this all played out. Because for those who remember what was happening around the time Klay Thompson came to the Mavs, it really came down between the Lakers and the Mavericks. And Klay Thompson was offered a 4-year, $80 million deal with the Lakers and offered a 3-year, $50 million deal with the Mavericks. And he passed up on the Lakers because he said the Mavericks had a better chance of getting to the playoffs, getting to the finals, and becoming champions. And at the time when he said that, he was right. He was right. And so he made that decision to come to the Mavericks and play with Luka, and he wanted to go to the playoffs. He wanted to be a champion. And they signed him on July 2nd. Luka got hurt on December 25th. Okay? Players get hurt. It happens. And then on February 2nd, less than a year after Klay Thompson makes his trade and comes over to the Mavericks, they get rid of Luka. Not only do they get rid of Luka, they send him to the team that Klay Thompson passed up to go to the Mavs. They send him to the Lakers. And then the Mavs in exchange get some of the scrubs that Klay Thompson did not want to play with, who he passed up on playing with, but now that's who he's playing with. I would not blame Klay Thompson for wanting to fight Nico Harrison. That's why everybody's talking about his lack of production. I don't blame him. Because it's like, not only did you get rid of Luka, you got Anthony Davis, and then you've got Kyrie, but like, when have we ever seen Kyrie and AD actually play together? Or do they both just take turns being hurt? So if I was Klay Thompson, I would have checked out too. Whether or not I had a baddie like Megan Thee Stallion next to me, picking her up from the airport, taking her on lavish dates. But anyway, after that trade, there were a lot of explanations for the trade. There were a lot of explanations. There was a lot from the governor of the Mavericks, who's not the owner. He's a governor, is what Patrick Dumont is. And they were talking about character and culture to explain away the trade. And Nico Harrison made his comments about, bold decisions and how they were implementing a win-now strategy. That's what he said, a win-now strategy. But they didn't start winning. They played 44 games since they let go of Luka, and I think they've won 16 of them, I think is what I heard. They've been 16-28 since that happened. So yeah, not really looking good in terms of the win-now strategy, and not really looking good in terms of bold decisions working out, and really not even looking good in terms of character and culture. But real quick, I want to read y'all the statement that Patrick Dumont made after they fired Nico Harrison, and then we can kind of get more into some of y'all's comments in the chat, because I see that y'all are having whole conversations about this in the chat. So, What Patrick Dumont said in an open letter from Mavericks owner Patrick Dumont to all Mavs fans. He said, "Dear Mavs family, on May 30th, 2024, the Mavericks won the Western Conference Championship. We came up short in the NBA Finals, but we all agreed our future was bright. As fans of this franchise, you have every right to demand a commitment to success from us. No one associated with the Mavericks organization is happy with the start of what we all believed would be a promising season. You have high expectations for the Mavericks, and I share them with you. When the results don't meet expectations, it's my responsibility to act. I've made the decision to part ways with General Manager Nico Harrison. Though the majority of the 2025-26 season remains to be played, and I know our players are deeply committed to a winning culture, the decision was critical to moving our franchise forward in a positive direction. I understand the profound impact these difficult last several months have had. Please know that I'm fully committed to the success of the Mavericks. Thank you for your support. Thank you for holding us accountable. And thank you for your passion and for your patience. You deserve transparency and a team that reflects your spirit. Our goal is to return winning basketball to Dallas and win championships. Our family is committed to that mission and to continuing to invest in Dallas and the Mavericks' future. Please join me in continuing to cheer on our players and supporting all of those who work to make this organization the best it can be. Go Mavs. Thank you, Patrick." Now, when it says that they want to return winning basketball to Dallas and win championships, I think the question for a lot of Mavericks fans is like, okay, but when? How long is that going to take? Because in an effort to implement this win now strategy, you've given up a lot of your draft picks. So, and this kind of relates to what I'm seeing some of y'all talk about in the chat. The Mavs only control 2 of their first round draft picks for the next 7 years. So on one hand, they need to abandon the win now strategy. They don't really have a choice at this point. But they're in a position where the timing would be right for them to build around Cooper Flag. But with what? Like, how are you going to do that? And so that's why I appreciate you, Turan, for asking this question. Do you think AD gets traded? Do I think AD gets traded? Yeah. Now, I don't know for what, because at this point, for some reason, I'm going to say this about the NBA. For some reason, it takes NBA execs, front office, the decision makers, it takes them so long to pick up on patterns. And I don't know why. Because, and let me rewind this, because this is even related to Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont. Because here's the thing. Nico Harrison took a lot of heat for the Luka trade, as he should. He's GM. But the fact that he was immediately fired after that happened says to me that somebody else in that building signed off on it. The fact that he can go out in public and say things like he didn't realize how important Luka was to the fan base. He didn't realize what Luka meant to the fan base. The fact that he can say things like that out loud after the backlash he received and not be fired, to me says somebody in that building signed off on that trade. So somebody else besides Nico is responsible for all this going down. There's somebody else who said that was okay. And Nico just became the face of it. He just became the scapegoat, unfortunately. That's why you hear fire Nico chants. You don't hear fire Patrick chants. You don't hear sell the team chants, which we should. You don't hear any of that. So there's other, and then I was reading some of the interviews from Patrick Dumont and the family that now owns the Mavericks since Mark Cuban sold them, or sold the majority of the Mavericks, which is probably, for as much good as Mark Cuban did for this team, his decision to sell the team to this particular family might have been one of the worst things he ever did. Because they're talking about they love basketball. Oh, we're a basketball family. Okay, you're a basketball family, but you didn't realize that taking AD onto your team was a bad idea. You didn't realize that trading away Luka was just terrible optics. Make that make sense. Explain that to me. Explain it to me like I'm 5. But anyway, so when it comes to what they're going to do next and how they're going to handle this, I don't necessarily trust them to make the right decisions. And then, like I was saying, for whatever reason, the NBA seems to take a while when it comes to recognizing patterns. And so that's why they ended up making this decision to take on AD, because for some reason they did not recognize a pattern that this man is always hurt, no matter what team he's on. But I'm like, okay, Does the rest of the NBA see it now? Or are they going to look at the upside? Are they going to bet on AD's good traits and say, like, nah, we'll take him on. He'll be different with us, like they do so many times. It makes me think of Kevin Durant and how long it took the NBA to realize that Kevin Durant is not a leader. Kevin Durant is a lot of things. He is an excellent athlete. He is one of the best basketball players in the world. But if you need somebody to come in and establish culture and be an example for younger players and to be the guy that everybody else rallies around, you don't want Kevin Durant. That's not what he does. But for some reason, it took the NBA decision makers so long to realize that season after season. KD was going from team to team, and people were like, well, he's not showing leadership qualities, and there's these issues with the culture, and there's these issues with his teammates, and it's like, y'all keep wanting him to be something he's not. And it happened with KD, and it's happening with AD. JV said, who's missed more games, AD or Kawhi? I don't even know. I stopped counting. I'm so done with both of them. And so, yeah, do I think AD gets traded? Yes. Because at this point, whether they want to say it out loud or not, the Mavs have to find a way to rebuild. The pieces that they've got in-house are not working. They started this season 3-8. And that's not because of Klay Thompson's relationship with Megan Thee Stallion. I'm bringing that up because for those of you who don't spend a lot of time on social media, this is a side note. It is a tangent. But men who criticize Klay Thompson's relationship with Megan Thee Stallion, that's like the new red flag. That's like the new red flag. It's like, I can tell if you're an undercover misogynist by how you talk about Klay Thompson. Because here's the thing. First of all, there's so many things going wrong with that team that to see everything that's happening and think that, oh, everything would be great if Klay Thompson weren't in love right now. If he weren't picking his girl up from the airport and buying her flowers. It's like, oh, she's such a distraction. What, sitting courtside talking to his mom? Like, what has she done? Nothing. And then also on the flip side, like these same content creators who talk about how Klay Thompson is so terrible because he's dating Meg Thee Stallion, you never hear them say the opposite. You never hear them point out like good basketball players who must be in like really healthy, stable relationships. Like you never hear them being like, oh yeah, LeBron, look at how long he's been able to play in the league. You can tell his wife is so supportive. You can tell he's got somebody taking care of him at home and cooking meals and XYZ. Like nobody ever talks about that. But then as soon as like one of their favorite players goes from single to in a relationship and they're public about it, they're open about it, it's like, oh, look at his numbers. Look, this woman is a distraction. So the fire Nico chants in the arena aren't a distraction. The fact that there's almost no truly consistently productive players on the Mavs is not a distraction. The fact that everything he went to the Mavericks to play for has gone out the window, that couldn't be impacting him. No, it must be the fact that he found him like a beautiful woman to be in a relationship with. Y'all kill me. Y'all kill me with this. Anyway, back to ball. So yes, I do think AD gets traded. I saw somebody in the chat talking about Kid getting fired. Could possibly happen because like if you're in a situation where you need to build around a young talent like Cooper Flag, somebody who like so everybody's expecting a lot from this guy, you can damn near trade anybody. Anybody who's under the age of 23 can go. Y'all need pieces who are going to come in ready to learn and ready to gel. And one thing that we've learned from other teams and from other sports is that some coaches are better than others when it comes to working with newer, younger players, when it comes to creating the type of team culture and environment that lends itself to a rebuilding culture. You know what I'm saying? So they might have to get a new coach. New GM, new coach. I don't think we can do anything about the ownership right now. They paid $3.8 billion. It's billion with a B, which brings me to another point of why I think Nico Harris got fired. For the first time in, I forgot how long it was. I might have to look up this stat. But let's just say it was several years that the Mavs were consistently selling out games. And in October, for the first time in that number of years, they didn't sell out. So the ticket sales are declining. And honestly, I think that's the real reason. I think as long as Mavs fans were still buying tickets, it's like, I feel like ownership was like, hey, y'all want to show up in your Luka jerseys and chant fire Nico all night? Do that. As long as you filling up the seats, do what you got to do. And then when they saw, oh shit, the team is so bad that people don't even want to be in the building anymore. That's when they felt like they had to do something. Now, is firing Nico going to fix the issues with the tickets? No, it's not. They're going to have to weather this out because I don't see the team getting better. Not unless they got some kind of ace up their sleeve. Not unless there is a team out there who actually wants AD and doesn't remember that, once again, this man has been called street clothes for the last 2 seasons. If they can really bamboozle somebody into taking some of their less valuable pieces and convincing them that they're worth something, maybe they can make that work, because they're not getting their draft picks back. I think the draft picks that they lost now belong to 4 different teams. So they're not getting them back. Not all of them. So they can't draft their way into rebuilding. So they're going to have to trade for it. So, I mean, Klay might get his wish. I feel like when it comes to who can be traded and who can be gotten rid of, I feel like trying to grant Klay's wish and sending him to the Lakers, you have a better chance of doing that than actually getting anything good for AD. Because when it comes to your star players for the Mavs right now, AD, hurt guy. Kyrie is now being looked at as hurt guy. So Klay Thompson might be one of your bigger names on the team, honestly. So honestly though, with the production of everybody on the team, I would say their best chance of having a winning season at this point might be the fact that these guys want to get traded. Because, you want to get traded? Start putting some good stuff on tape. Now that the fired Nico chance will have ended and, these guys have incentive to start putting some good stuff on tape. Now, the thing that could backfire is, okay, well, now the Mavs want to keep you now that you're being productive. So, who knows? Who knows how that's going to play out? But, yeah, I do think that AD will get traded. I do think there are going to be a few pieces that are traded. I think the team is going to get younger, and that things are going to stay bad for a little while before they get better. JV, you said the Mavs should trade Kyrie to the Lakers. Do you not think that would be just weird? LeBron is still there. Now, people have been saying the Lakers are ready to get rid of LeBron and they want the Lakers to become Luka's team. I don't know how true that is. But, the Lakers are going through some organizational changes themselves in terms of ownership and who's making the decisions and whatnot. So who knows? There could be some interesting things happening with the Lakers. But I don't know. Trading Kyrie to the Lakers, even though it's been years since there was any tension or even any connection between Kyrie and LeBron, it still feels like every time the possibility of them playing together comes up, people go back to it. I mean, thinking about it, if I take that situation and put it in a vacuum, okay, that would be cool. But if I use the NBA decision-making timeline of we don't recognize patterns until it's 3 or 4 seasons too late, I could see that not working out. But anyway, when we come back from the break, we've got some things to talk about in terms of Cowboys news. And so we're just going to talk about the Cowboys after the bye, where things are at and where things are going, or where they should go at least, if the Cowboys want to have a decent second half of the season. So we'll talk about all that on the other half. And as always, feel free to put all your questions, comments, your takes in the chat, and I will look at them during the break. And then we can kind of talk about some of those whenever I come back after we pay some bills. So we're going to run some ads. Stick around. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case of $50. $10 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
And we are back. What's up, bros and besties? All right, not too much going on in the chat today, but while we're on break, I did pull up this article. So we'll do a little read and react to this real quick before we get into the Cowboys news. But it's an article that says Nico Harrison's Mavericks tenure will be defined by the ones who got away. And so I just wanted to point out some of the things that are in this article because it talks about, like, basically players that have been traded away from the Mavericks that have been overshadowed by the trading of Luka, but who we should also think about when we think about decisions that Nico Harrison has made. So it mentions first Kristaps Porzingis. It says the first splash that Harrison made after he was hired in June 2021 came 8 months later when he traded Kristaps Porzingis to the Washington Wizards for Spencer Dinwiddie, Davis Bertans, and Dallas's own future second-round pick. Porzingis' tenure with the Mavericks was a lopsided one, but there were genuine bright spots with him and Doncic on the floor together. It says they were dream pick-and-roll partners. I bet. The second one they mention is Jalen Brunson. Aside from trading Doncic, this is without a doubt Harrison's most egregious transaction. Just 2 months after making the Western Conference Finals in 2022, the Mavericks made the incredibly confusing decision to allow Brunson to walk to the New York Knicks for nothing in return. I feel like that's the worst part. It's one thing to trade somebody, but to just let them go for nothing, especially Jalen Brunson. Like, what? So they let him walk to the New York Knicks for nothing in return. Never mind the fact that Brunson carried the Mavericks when Doncic was sidelined for a portion of the first round against the Jazz. Harrison felt fine letting Brunson walk to the Knicks, the same Brunson who has since become a bona fide All-Star and MVP candidate and took the Knicks to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years last season. Then it mentions Luka, which we've talked about. It says, you don't trade a perennial all-star in the beginning of their prime for a soon-to-be 33-year-old who has durability issues. Amen. Like, that pretty much sums it up in one sentence. You also don't make that trade and only net one first-round pick in return. That is crazy. The second part is more egregious than the first. You could talk me into a diluted reality in which a roster featuring Davis and Kyrie Irving is better than one led by Doncic. Emphasis on diluted there. Who just 8 months prior to the trade led you to the NBA Finals. That roster is probably pretty good if you're playing 2K with injuries turned off. But we live in this reality where both Davis and Irving are in their early to mid-30s, have long histories of injuries, and neither of them are Luka Doncic. Credit to this writer. Who wrote this? This is written by one Jasmine Wimbish. Shout out to the women in sports. I love it. Written by Jasmine Wimbish for CBSSports.com. I'm going to go follow her on LinkedIn. She is killing it. It also mentions Quentin Grimes, says 2 days after making the worst trade in NBA history, Harrison lined up another stinker that often goes unnoticed. Grimes became a surprise contributor last season while Doncic was rehabbing from a calf strain. He had a few 20-point outings, but it was his effort on defense that made him essential in Doncic's absence. You know, the thing in which Harrison staked his entire career on by proclaiming defense wins championships? After the Lakers trade, Grimes was an efficient shooter, could get to the rim, and provided some necessary perimeter defense. So just a few of the other transactions that don't get talked about nearly as much as the Luka trade, but we should definitely think of when we remember Nico Harrison, who is not dead. He has just been fired. So there's that. But all right, let's talk about Cowboys. Let's talk about the Cowboys after the bye week. RIP to Marshawn Nealon. I did do an episode on that, so we won't dive too much into that right now. Just there's one thing that I want to say about that. To the people who were on Twitter saying, "Oh, this is sad what happened, but he shouldn't have been running for the cops." Fuck y'all. Because there's no evidence that he had done anything illegal. As a matter of fact, it turns out that they believe he was running away from the cops and ended up in those high-speed chases because someone had called out of concern for him. And so he was trying to get away from anyone that was going to stop him from doing what he ultimately ended up doing. Not because he had done something illegal and then felt guilt over it. But that's just like a really fucked up thing to say about someone who's unalived themselves when you have like no evidence and no storyline supporting that. Like, why can't people just be kind? Like, why can't people just be considerate? Like, even if you think that, you don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to type it on a public platform. You don't have to try to make a conversation out of it. Nobody asked you for your fucked up opinions. So there's that. But yeah, when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys on the field stuff, we went into this bye week seeing a lot of issues with the Dallas Cowboys. Since the beginning of the season, we've seen issues with the defense, but in the last couple of weeks, we've seen issues with the offense as well. Not that the offense is doing a whole lot wrong, more so that a lot of the things that tend to create weaknesses or exploit the weaknesses of the Cowboys offense were being exploited by the teams they were facing. Things that are easily duplicable. They figured out how to answer the riddle of, okay, how do we handle George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb? And after a few weeks of putting so many things on film, teams will start to figure that out. And they didn't really seem to have come up with any creative solutions to adjust for that. So there was that. Also, just some questionable play calling, questionable decision making, and then just some really bad red zone offense, which is absolutely going to be a problem moving forward. Because, we saw them even against teams that had trouble getting them off the field in a couple of drives. Cowboys getting all the way into the red zone and walking away with a field goal or with no points at all, depending on the decision that was made. And so it's like, yeah, the Cowboys have a lot to work on. Now, at this point, I believe last time I checked, they have a less than 10% chance of making the playoffs at all. But it's not impossible. So what would have to happen in order for them to make the playoffs? Or even just end the rest of the season on a high note, what would have to happen in order for the Cowboys to turn things around, to make somewhat of a 180? So if y'all have been watching my content on some of the other platforms, me and Kaylu of Dope Content started a new TikTok channel that's called True or False. And one of the things that we talked about was true or false. The Cowboys will now be a playoff team because of the players that they traded for. So they traded for Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson right before the trade deadline, or as a trade, like literally as the time was ticking down. Like, I remember thinking Logan Wilson was the only move that they made. And then next thing you know, it's like, they got Williams too. And I'm like, okay, well, that's something to talk about, something to be excited about. JV says it's a 5 to 19% chance as of today. That is a big gap. That is a big gap. But thank you for the accurate information, JV. So yeah, either way, low chance. We're talking about less than 50%, less than 25%. We're talking about really low odds of making the playoffs, but a chance nonetheless. But anyway, in this particular episode where we were talking about those trades, one of the things that I said was, I said false on them making the playoffs, but only because of a technicality in the answer. it won't be because of the trades by themselves. It'll be because of other decisions, other things that the Cowboys end up doing. And what I mean by that is we've seen some flashes from the defense in terms of things that they can do well, but two things are happening. They're not sticking to the things that work well, and they're still figuring out their personnel. So what do I mean by that? The word of the day, or the word of the week, that last week of press conferences that they did before the news hit about Marshawn Nealon, the word of the week was 5-down defense, or 5-down front. And Schottenheimer talked about it. We never got to hear the coordinators last week. So all we heard was what Schottenheimer thought about it. And, he acknowledged that this was a much more productive formation, or a much more productive front for the Cowboys defense, which if you were watching the games, you could see that was definitely the case. But he also said something that was interesting to me when he said that the reason why Marist Liufau wasn't getting as many snaps was because they were using this 5-down front. And so the thing that was interesting to me about that is, okay, that game against the Cardinals was not the first time that they used a 5-down front. They had been experimenting with it. And in the 2 weeks prior to that, when they did use a five-down front, Marist Liufau was part of that front. They were using him as a standing edge on the, I want to say left side. I guess it depends which side is right and left, depending on. So, like, if the view that I was watching the film on was where the offense's quarterback was, like, his back was to the camera. So, like, if you're looking at the front of the defense, Marist was usually on the left. But either way, he was part of that front, and they were using him as a standing edge. But then all of a sudden, Schottenheimer says, "Oh, well, we didn't play him very much because we were using the 5-down front." And I'm like, huh? That doesn't make sense. And so what that told me was, all right, the Cowboys are still figuring out what their personnel is going to look like if they do decide to use this front consistently, and who goes where, who they can trust to do what. And that's going to still be, like, they're going to have even more to figure out with bringing Logan Wilson into the mix and bringing Quinnen Williams into the mix, because one can only assume that Quinnen's going to be a part of this. As a matter of fact, as judgmental as I was about them not using that front consistently enough for my taste, part of the reason I believe was because of the rotation. I just felt like, they need more bodies that they can depend on in order to have that many guys out there on the front that often. So it'll be like the players that they traded for will definitely contribute to them being able to do some more things, because the thing about that front is it's not even just about having more guys on the line of scrimmage. Anytime that you saw them doing anything that was slightly creative with the defense, anytime you saw any like the gap exchange stuff and stuff like that, they were doing that from that front. When they were doing the 4-man front, it was almost always the 4 guys in front were attacking, and then the linebackers were hanging back for some reason, and then they had that gap in between that first level and the second level that, if y'all watch my streams, I was calling the Red Sea, and I was like, this makes no sense, because you've got your defensive linemen attacking, and then the linebackers are just basically standing there watching. They're not following up. They're not cleaning up, nothing. And so not only was the 4-man front not effective, but like they just weren't doing anything creative with it. And I don't know why, but that's just what was happening. And then apparently they were moving the green dot around, right? And so it'll be interesting to see if, like, do they just automatically put Logan Wilson in that green dot position? Do they trust him that much? Who's going to be on the field? Who's doing what? Those are all things that they're going to have to work out. And we're going to come back to this point, but speaking of Marist Liufau, there's I don't want to call it a game that I wanted to play with you guys, but since we're at the halfway point of the season, I did kind of want to do a little bit of a how it started versus how it's going with a few things concerning the Cowboys. Because I just think this is interesting to think about when we think about things that they have to change and things that we should expect them to change within the next few weeks. So, how it started, how it's going. One of the most interesting things when it comes to thinking about the Cowboys before the season started and thinking about the Cowboys now is one Mr. George Pickens. We'll come back to the defense in a little bit, but we're going to start on the offense and talking about George Pickens, because I remember the day that the Cowboys acquired George Pickens, and I remember so many sports shows and so many headlines just talked about George Pickens like he was a problem child of the NFL. They talked about his supposed off-the-field issues, his supposed attitude issues, and just wondering what Jerry Jones was thinking, and did they know what they're bringing into the locker room, so on and so forth. And even before he got traded, like the Steelers, which is who Pickens came from for anyone who didn't follow that part, but the Steelers, their fans and their beat writers were talking about George Pickens so bad. Like, they really made it sound like he was one of the worst things to happen to the Steelers in a long time. So, one of the things that comes to mind is, and I'm pulling it up right now, sorry, I had some of these things pulled up, you guys, but I think whenever I close my computer and then try to come back to it, some of the things have to reload. But yeah, I've got an article here that was written in January of 2025, so less than a year ago. And it says, latest George Pickens report further proves the Steelers culture has reached an all-time low. That's a headline for this. And what exactly did he do? He was late for a Christmas Day game. So this article says, Pickens sat out the next 2 games with a hamstring injury. When he was finally healthy, how did he respond? By showing up late for the Christmas Day game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Tomlin asked players to report to games at least 2 hours before the kickoff. On December 25th, Pickens walked through the media entrance an hour and 25 minutes before kickoff. That was after inactive players were announced. How dare he? Now, I get that that's not exactly a good look. But if we scroll up in this same article, the article starts off, a late season collapse never seen in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers is bringing a lot to light. Just this week, we learned of players refusing to play in Saturday's game against the Ravens, saw our running backs call out the coaching staff, and watched a team all but quit in a playoff game. But on Tuesday, perhaps the most damning report yet surfaced, and it concerns none other than suspect number 1, George Pickens. Now, you got to think about this. This article has already mentioned players refusing to play, players calling out coaches, players basically giving up in a playoff game. But when it comes to the culture reaching an all-time low, that damn George Pickens showed up late. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And we're reporting on it like 2 weeks after it happened, but we think y'all need to know that this man is terrible. What? So then you fast forward to this point in the season, and George Pickens is one of the most productive players of the Cowboys offense. Everybody in the Cowboys fan base is so glad that he's in Dallas. And what were the Steelers doing leading up to the trade deadline? They were looking for a wide receiver, weren't they? Not only were they looking for one, they couldn't find one. They weren't able to find anyone to fill this hole. So in an overview of the situation, it says, the Pittsburgh Steelers were actively searching for a wide receiver ahead of the trade deadline, but were unsuccessful in acquiring one. And it says their reasoning was, the team's offense was recognized as needing more help, particularly a dynamic playmaker to complement their existing talent. Didn't they have one of those? But no, that dynamic playmaker that they had apparently was a representative of the fact that the culture had reached an all-time low. But the desired player was not acquired before the deadline. Yeah, because y'all traded him away. Anyway, that's probably one of the most interesting and humorous how it started, how it's going stories, in my opinion. Something else on the list of things to look at in terms of how it started versus how it's going. Matt Eberflus's defense. Do y'all remember when Matt Eberflus first got hired and people were like, oh, yeah, this is going to be great. Not only is Matt Eberflus a great defensive mind, like, don't pay attention to what he did as head coach with the Chicago Bears. Don't look over there. Like, just look at what he did with defenses. His defenses are always so well disciplined. He's a linebacker whisperer, you guys. Like, this is a great move for the Cowboys. This is one of the smartest coaching hires they could have ever made. Yeah, how's that going? So not only were people really excited about Matt Eberflus's defense, but they were excited about Osa Odighizuwa's role in it. So last year around this time, there was a broadcast where Osa Odighizuwa was called one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And when he got paid that $80 million contract to stay with the Cowboys, everybody was like, oh, he deserved it. He was going to be a pillar of this defense. You know, he's exactly the type of defensive tackle that Matt Eberflus is looking for. And speaking of defensive linemen under Matt Eberflus' scheme, y'all remember who else was like getting really, really hyped up? Y'all remember how people were talking about Sam Williams during training camp? Does anybody remember that? Like, oh, he was supposed to be an impact player. Like, Sam Williams was supposed to be that dude. And then I think it was today. Was it today? As a matter of fact, maybe I can find it. Hold on. Maybe that's one of the tabs that's still up. Let me see if I can find what they were saying about Sam. So it's an article that says, Sam Williams' poor response to struggles says it all. And it says Sam Williams may have punched his ticket out of Dallas with one emoji. He's always tweeting crazy stuff. I'm not really worried about anything that he's tweeting. But there's one section of this article says, if you believe Brian Schottenheimer, it has been the players who have been the bigger problem than the scheme, and nobody would blame them if they pointed the finger at Sam Williams as part of their reasoning for that stance. One of the most underperforming players on the Cowboys defense, Williams spotted an X post by Bob Sturm of 96.7 The Ticket that showed him getting washed out by Carolina Panthers receiver Xavier Legette on a play in Sunday's loss. So this was obviously an article from a couple weeks ago. But to say that Sam is one of the most underperforming players on the Cowboys defense, considering how they were talking about him during training camp and what they expected from him, that's a really big gap in terms of how it started versus how it's going. Now, if you listen to me a lot, you know I don't really agree with Brian Schottenheimer on that point. As a matter of fact, it's been one of the points on which I've been most critical about Brian Schottenheimer and the fact that he's been blaming players so much and not putting enough onus, in my opinion, on Flus. And also, talks a lot about going to these defensive meetings and spending a lot of time on Flus. Okay, well then why is it taking this man so long to implement a scheme that actually makes sense? And we see him occasionally do things that actually make sense, but then he goes away from it. It's not consistent. So that to me says, even whatever you're even doing in private, Brian Schottenheimer, you're not doing enough to influence the situation. So at the end of the day, you're still a head coach. So that's one of the points that I've been most critical of Brian Schottenheimer. It's how he landed in the damn burn book last week because of the fact that he keeps blaming players and they keep talking about like, oh, well, we got to go by what we see in practice and yada, yada, yada. And I'm just like, okay, the scheme is terrible though. And that does affect players. Like whether people want to admit it or not, or whether people know it or not. I think if you don't want to admit that the scheme can affect players and that having a scheme that doesn't make sense or is too unfamiliar, or a coach who won't just play to your strengths, if you don't think that can affect players, and that just to me says you've never played a team sport before. If you think it's not possible for a coach or coordinator to come in and look at the strengths of their personnel and be like, okay, this is a game plan based on what y'all all do well. If y'all think that's just an impossible task or it's just something that's just like so outside of the ordinary, like that would be weird to do. That to me just says that you don't know ball and you've never played team sports. So. And then the final item on the list of how it started versus how it's going is Marist Liufau. Now, Marist is like the biggest mystery out of all this because he went from being talked about to just like nobody's talking about him. Like the first few weeks of the season, people were pounding the table for Marist Liufau to get more snaps, talking about how he needed to start in place of Jack Sanborn. And then all of a sudden, it just went quiet. And I get it. Marist is kind of showing Cowboys Nation that he is going to need some time to learn how to tackle. And I don't know what's taking that so long. I don't know what's going on there. But when they started using him in that odd man front, like I talked about, and they started using him at standing edge, I was like, okay, this is a position where he could actually be useful. This is a position that might actually play more to Marist Liufau's strengths. Because putting Marist Liufau on the second level and being like, hey, what we want from you is open field coverage. That's fucking bananas. That is bananas to expect that from Marist Liufau. But to put him on the front as a standing edge and be like, hey, what we want from you is to make the quarterback nervous as hell. That he can do. And so to remove him from that spot, and then to talk about him like he was never there. Like, oh, yeah, you know, he didn't get any snaps this week because we were using this front that he had been in for the last couple of weeks, and then we just didn't use him there today, but we're not going to explain why in this press conference that was set up for me to explain things. Why would I actually tell y'all the truth or explain anything? I don't know, Brian Schottenheimer. Maybe because people actually care about this team and want to know why certain decisions are being made. Because, like, if we gonna go on Twitter and be all emotional every damn weekend, can we just at least have some reliable information for these conversations that we're having with one another? Crazy idea, right? But yeah, that is probably the biggest mystery, because I'm just like, even if he didn't instantly give what he was supposed to give in that position, taking him out of it is not going to help. I always say you get better at playing football by playing football. Giving him less snaps, especially after moving him around so much, is not going to help. So whatever you think his strengths are, whatever you think he can provide for this defense, which when it comes to linebacker depth and when it comes to just the depth of players who know what the fuck they're doing in general, you don't really have time to be benching nobody who has the raw skills that Marist Liufau does have. If anything, I would say let him keep trying. Like, if he's doing well in that spot, let him keep trying, let him keep going, and maybe he'll get comfortable enough to where he can figure out how to integrate better tackling techniques with what he's doing. But what I don't understand is, JV, you are right. He has no sponsors, and I only have like a minute and something left in this show today, but I'm going to take a picture of what you just said, and we're going to talk about that on Thursday. But that right there, I feel like gets to the bottom of it, because he wasn't a Schottenheimer pick. He's definitely not a Flus pick. And if anything, he challenges the guys that Flus likes for the stuff that they do well. Because what did we hear about Marist Liufau when he got here? He's smart. He has high football IQ. He's ready to take on the green dot, even though he's only a rookie. Oh, he's a Mike in training. Like, Eric Kendricks is going to train him up to be the next Mike. Then all of a sudden, it's like, 20 snaps, 15 snaps, 10 snaps. We're not going to use him in this front that he's actually good at. What? Yo, what? So anyway, I say all that to say the Cowboys have a lot to work on when it comes to figuring out what their personnel is going to look like and how they want to use them. And I wish I had more time to read all y'all's comments, but I'm going to say shout out to the Black Paladin. Shout out to Barbershop Sports Talk. Clement, I see you. JV, thanks for being here. We're going to continue this conversation on Thursday and possibly even next week. So just make sure that y'all have hit the like button, that you subscribed, and that you keep those notifications turned on. And definitely meet me back here next Tuesday on NTX Radio at 5 p.m. so we can finish some of these conversations. But I'm going to look at y'all's comments and we'll get to them. Some of them I might answer in the YouTube community. Some of them we might get to on Thursday, but we're going to get to them because these are conversations that need to be had. But this has been another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm your host, Jazz Monet. Thank you for watching. I'm out.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio. Attention all business owners and creative minds. Do you need a unique and personalized touch for your products? Look no further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety of products, including promotional items and corporate or personal gifts. With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design,